Hello, I'm Dave Dubin, co-founder of AliveAndKickn, a Lynch syndrome hereditary cancer advocacy organization and a three-time Lynch cancer survivor. AliveAndKickn's mission is to improve the lives of individuals and families affected by Lynch syndrome and associated cancers through research, education, and screening. I'm here with Elyse Azriel, a board member of AliveAndKickn. Elyse, you first shared your story at our Living with Lynch patient workshop and mentioned you've always had an interest in genetics. Can you tell us when you first learned about genetic testing?
Yeah, so I think my interest probably first started when my grandma had breast cancer. She had a double mastectomy, and um, and so we found out about the BRCA gene mutation, and wanted to find out if that was something that ran in the family. Um, and so my whole family did 23andMe genetic testing, and it came back negative. And so, I thought, okay, I don't have BRCA. That's great. And I also naively assumed that that meant that I didn't have other genetic mutations as well. So I kind of thought I was off the hook. Um, and so, yeah, I think that was kind of my first introduction into genetic testing and understanding what what we could find out through it, but I didn't realize that it was so limited through this one test.
So how did you come to find out about your Lynch syndrome mutation?
Yeah, so I had an appointment with my doctor for my annual physical, and she was telling me about an initiative that they were doing for genetic testing for patients. And I told her, "Oh no, I already did genetic testing. I'm all good. It was negative." And she said, "Oh no, no, no. There's a lot more that these things can look at. And considering your dad's history with colon cancer and that he was diagnosed with colon cancer under the age of 50, she really recommended that I do it." And being the science nerd and always a very curious person that I am, I really figured, okay, why not? And on top of it, it was free. And so that made it a pretty easy decision for me at that point. And so I think about a month later, I got my results and found out that I have Lynch syndrome.
Wow. So what did this diagnosis mean for you? And how did you process the information?
Um, wow. So when I first found out, honestly, I think I was kind of in a fog when the genetic counselor had called me and told me about Lynch syndrome, and that was the first time I'd ever heard of it, and she was telling me what that meant. I think I only probably heard about half of what she was really telling me about what Lynch syndrome meant and what that could mean for my future and my family. And so I got off the phone and I remember just thinking, wait, I have cancer, or I might have cancer, or I'm gonna have cancer. What did she tell me? And so I started researching a lot, as I think a lot of us do. And um then I finally did get a chance to sit down with a genetic counselor and an oncologist um, at a center for personalized medicine, and they were able to really walk me through what this all meant. And it was super helpful. They gave me a list of amazing doctors, gastroenterologist, gynecological oncologist, dermatologist, the list goes on of all the doctors that I could go and see. And I feel very fortunate to have had that experience. And then when I was able to go and see the gastroenterologist, I walked into his office and he said, "Okay, so you have Lynch syndrome and you're 26 years old, and this is what that means, and you're going to be my new best friend." and so and so that was a huge relief to know that he actually knew what Lynch syndrome was. And of course, we know how common Lynch syndrome is. One in every 276 people, is it, that
Close
have,
enough.
yeah, something like that, have Lynch syndrome. And yet it seems like so many people don't know about it. And so I was really glad that my doctor knew a lot about it and could explain that we were going to do this screening every year, going to cleanse out that system to do a colonoscopy. And he really made it a very easy experience for me. So I feel very fortunate for that.
So speaking of new best friends, like you said with your physician, what would you say to friends and family members who are newly diagnosed with Lynch syndrome and really maybe don't know what to do next?
Um, so I would definitely first realize from my own experience that when we first find out, it can be so um, difficult to get this news and not know what that really means, and reassure them that this does not necessarily mean that you currently have cancer unless you found out because you have a cancer diagnosis. That's obviously a different way of finding out. But if it was through screening, through genetic testing, then the next step would be to get some screening done. And here, let's look for a good genetic counselor in your area to help you understand this. And then we're going to find some great doctors to help you go through this. And really, they're just going to do a lot of baseline screenings to make sure that you don't currently have cancer and see what your body looks like at this state when you don't have cancer. So then when you do these screenings yearly or every few years, then they'll be able to notice those differences and help them realize that this is not at all a death sentence, that we have so many opportunities to have resources for finding out whether we have cancer at any point in our lives, and then point them towards the great support groups and organizations like AliveAndKickn, um, to help them understand that there are other people going through this out there that they can talk to. And of course, um, make sure that they know that they can always talk to me too about all of this, because I know it's not an easy process, but it's easier when we can be in it together.
Well, Elyse, you have an important message to share. So thank you for being a patient champion through AliveAndKickn and for encouraging others to find out what's going on with their family cancer history by having genetic testing. You can find AliveAndKickn at a number of different social media locations on our website. We can be found at www.aliveandkickn.org. That's spelled AliveAndKickn.org. We are on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Looking forward to seeing you there.